Life's an adventure, and Sabrina Thompson Mitchell is enjoying the ride and showing others that while it's not always possible to have it all, you can get enough to live one hell of a life. Sabrina is a director, editor, producer, photographer, and owner of that is pronounced Coup Productions, a dynamic media production company specializing in TV commercials, documentaries, world photography, social media campaigns, and now crafting television docuseries and scripted dramas. Her clients range from HBO, AT&T to Rock Nation Sports, along with a host of amazing clients worldwide. Sabrina's campaigns and work have been featured in or on NBC, Entertainment Tonight, The New York Times, Vogue magazine, People magazine, and art galleries in U.S. embassies in Australia, Rwanda, and North America. She has an exceptional eye and is an inspiring storyteller and just gets it. In 2007, she and three friends co founded WEEN, Women in Entertainment Empowerment Network, a New York City based women's nonprofit which served 80,000 plus young women over the span of 15 years and focused on molding young women of color to be executives in entertainment and technology. It was in this role that I first met Sabrina, and although many years have passed since then, I've remained a friend and among the many who are inspired by her sense of adventure, entrepreneurial spirit, commitment to fighting for what's right, and new experiences as a bonus mom. Those who know her believe it was her time as a former high school teacher that stoked her sense of adventure and fueled her interest in mentoring youth, and I don't think they're wrong, but it's her work as a former TV producer for Courtroom Television Network and Columbia TriStar syndicated talk shows that may be responsible for her ability to fly above life's drama, as she saw enough of it during those years of work and knows how to avoid it. Hmm. In 2012, Sabrina embarked on her wildest adventure of a lifetime and appeared on Survivor on CBS, where she was the runner up of the Emmy Award winning program. She also served as Hillary Clinton's cinematographer during the 2016 presidential campaign and was the lead photographer for the historic Women's March in Washington, D.C. in 2017. A native of Wilson, North Carolina, and a graduate of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and Long Island University, Sabrina spends her time between Brooklyn, New York, and Houston, Texas, depending on which new TV projects and mentoring youth projects she's working on. So please join me in welcoming Sabrina Thompson Mitchell to the PooleProof Wisdom Podcast. Good morning, Sabrina. So glad you could join me this morning.
Thank you, Charles, for having me. It is a pleasure. I don't know what you have up your sleeve, but I'm ready.
Well, there's always something. It's been a lot of years since we initially met, and I feel like you have just what's the word that is used? You've blown up, as they say, but in your
Aw.
own way. You haven't been someone who has just followed one path, but you've taken many paths, and that's the reason I was interested in speaking with you. So let's go back to that initial time when we met, which was a long time ago. We won't mention how long.
Yeah.
Uh, but I met you when you were still heading and working on projects with WEEN, and
Mhm.
and in support of that, in a corporate role that I held at the time, I
Right.
got to meet you and your partner in crime, Valicia,
Mhm.
and we got to know each other, and I was impressed by the work that you did. So let's talk a little bit about the beginning of that journey and what WEEN was and what it's done and why it is a foundational aspect of how you are proceeding even today.
Sure. I think when we met, I was like in my late 20s.
Mm.
And, Felicia is my best friend. I've known her since probably like the third grade. We come from a small town in Wilson, North Carolina. And we both have a similar trajectory of how we kind of left Wilson, North Carolina. We ended up in New York. We were like two country bumpkins who had big dreams, but we were in the city and it's massive and we didn't know too many people. And but we figured it out. But when we got towards our mid 20s, late 20s, we said, okay, what if there was a blueprint to give young girls who were just like us, who came straight out of college, wanted to move to a bigger city, but we oftentimes had a hard time trying to find mentors that looked like us, that were
Hmm.
Black and brown women that would, you know, that could cut to the chase and say, hey, hey, don't do this, or think about doing it this way. And so we created a program, and really it is the brainchild of Felicia. And what I did once we got it set up is I said, okay, education was part of my background. And I said, let's have an academy to this. And the academy takes money, of course, you know? And so long story short, WEEN stands for Women in Entertainment Empowerment Network. We ran it for 15 strong years, and we literally just dissolved it a couple of months ago. We are just in different spaces now in our lives, and it had a lot going on. But what we did essentially is we took young women between the ages of 18 to 26, and we gave them a blueprint that we created to help them navigate through this very male dominated and very white spaces of music and television and film and so forth, and how to take your womanhood and not just hide it or be small, but just how to be in these spaces, how to navigate it, especially as a Black or brown woman. And we gave them the tools. And this wasn't about if you went to Princeton or Yale and had a 4.0. This is about, hey, you may not have a college degree, and that's fine. You know, can you walk into a room, own that room, and figure out how to connect with people from a very organic way, you know, and not just shuffle your business cards around, because that's not how you form relationships, right? And so we really took them through real world situations. Some of them totally sank, you know, and a lot of them swam. And so I think it was just throwing them in real world situations. And sometimes you just don't really know how you're going to respond to something until it's in your face. And we had a great run. And from there, we produced so many alumni who are now off and working for Vogue and Condé Nast and LeBron James and DreamWorks and Viacom and Kenya Barris over at Netflix. And just, they are carving their own lane. And above all of these titles, what we're so proud of is that we really stress you have to lift as you climb, right? And no matter what position you get in, no matter what title you have, if you haven't brought someone along the way, mentor them, or in some shape, form, or fashion, then you've missed the whole point of WEEN, and you're missing the point of life, you know? And so we're very proud that we gave them a tribe in each cohort, and those tribes have really, some of them moved to Los Angeles from New York as a group. And some of them say, hey, I'm unemployed now here. I'm going to throw you this job. I'm going to, you know, and so they move as a tribe. And that has been so beautiful to watch. I can snap on Instagram or on Facebook or on Twitter and see their accomplishments and know that they have moved as a unit. And so that's essentially what WEEN was, but it was not cheap to run WEEN. And so that's how we ran into you and met you. And at the time, I think you held a corporate position with Anheuser-Busch, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And I don't know if you know the controversy behind it. So Felicia was like, hey, there's this guy, Charles, and she gave me a rundown. And she was just like, I think at the time she said, okay, he has $25,000 he can give to WEEN. And this was a very big, I don't want to say argument, but it was some friction in the room. And so some of the co-founders was like, oh my God, this is great. We can take the money and do X, Y, and Z. I came from another direction and was just like, does it have to be money from a beer company, you know? And what does this mean? And so we came to a common ground and said, listen, these young women are 21, 23. Surely they're going to drink when they get out in the real world, and how to drink responsibly. And so we said, okay, we can take this money and switch up the messaging and so forth. And that's what we did. And I'm so glad I fell on the sword and followed the other leaders. And that's how I met you over a couple of dinners and so forth. And we just stayed in contact. And I always tell people, I said, there are a few people that are like voices of reason for me. And Charles is that, although we don't meet that often, but that's the beauty of technology. And sometimes when I need that quote, boom, I cut on Instagram, I said, wow, Charles knew what I was going through. And this is why I need to just have a moment, a woosah moment, because I read your quote. So I thank you.
Well, right back at you. And I'm blushing, see? This is the only way I can tell. So that's interesting to me because it wasn't something I was not used to. I mean, that was part of what made the work so beneficial, because we had to break down barriers and, concerns about what we were trying to do. So it wasn't something I was, unused to. It's interesting to hear it now because I never would have known otherwise, but
Yeah.
not surprised overall because we had to fight a lot of battles to get people to see that we weren't out there trying to corrupt people.
Hmm.
Now, let's start a little bit about the fact that you chose to do this with women in entertainment.
Hmm.
Why entertainment versus any other field?
That's a good question. The four co-founders, Christy Henderson, Felicia Butterfield Jones, me, myself, and
Mhm.
along with Lauren Lake, um, what we wanted to do what we knew, right? And all of us were in some form of entertainment. I was in television and film. Felicia at the time was dealing with Hip Hop Summit Action Network, so there was music dipping dabbing in that. And then Lauren Lake has been a television
Right.
personality for forever, and Christy dealt with the marketing side of business, just trying to find the philanthropic ways that celebrities can get involved with the community. And so we said, we don't want to teach anything or try to give a blueprint of an industry we don't know anything about. And so, but as we grew as young women,
Mhm.
we started going into different avenues. Felicia being prime example, she went into tech from entertainment. And so from that, she got a certain expertise and we grew Ween. We started to have a tech sector to the curriculum of the Ween Academy. And so we just wanted to practice what we preach. I didn't want to go in and start talking about stocks when that's not my lane,
Right, right.
So, but oftentimes too, on the flip side, people you have to watch the narrative. Oftentimes in various households, we don't see, just from media alone, we don't see a plethora of like Black doctors
Mhm.
on television
Mhm.
or Black scientists and so forth. But we do see a lot of Black singers. We see a lot of Black ball players. We see a lot
Right.
of Black, from the entertainment sphere. So therefore, a lot of young people coming out of college, coming out of high school, they really want to be in that world, but have no clue the background and the griminess of it. I
Ah,
tell people
right,
outside of politics,
right.
entertainment is grimy. I would never want to be in politics. Politics is a way different beast. And so we said, okay, if these young girls, we're not here to deter them from their dream, but we are here to be very transparent with them. And
Mhm.
so yeah, we just said, okay, they're going to come out and they're going to have these aspirations. Let's just give it to them as raw as
Right,
possible. And
right.
so, yeah.
And the skills that you were able to provide these young women with, I mean, granted, it's women in entertainment, but they're literally life skills that are applicable to any discipline,
Yeah.
anywhere they go. Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I got from it, from my time in, working with you guys, is there was this level of confidence in self, this awareness of the world that you were a part of and how you could create your own place to fit in, that Ween seemingly had this really great understanding of. And no matter who you are or where you came from, if you were willing to do the work, you could learn from Ween how to find that place. Is that an accurate assessment?
You're right. And some of the young women got into the academy and realized, whoa, entertainment's not for me. But they
Hmm.
were still, those skills were transferable, how
Hmm.
to walk in a room, how to stand tall, how to project your voice. That was really some of the scariest moments where they're giving a report on it, maybe a market research case that they did or whatever. And the work on paper was immaculate. I said, okay, now present. And they were like, I said, no, present. I said, no one's going to care what's on that piece of paper if you can't sell it. So instead of selling what's on the piece of paper, let's just start with, who are you?
Right.
What do you
Right.
like?
Hmm.
And I said, if you have to, I said, even the shyest person, you have to learn how to come out of your shell for the time being. And then you can go right back in,
Hmm.
And I love there's something, actually an ad I read of Naomi Osaka, the tennis player. And this
Right.
was an ad that came out a while ago, but it's kind of resurfacing.
Hmm.
It's so timely. And it says, I'm not quiet. I just know when to speak up,
Exactly.
And there's nothing wrong with being quiet, but there's a skill to listening, right? And
Hmm.
so we taught a lot of stuff that was very concrete, but we wanted to go into the soft skills as well. So, because we had a lot of young women who came from some of these top universities, from Ivy League to Spelman, HBC, you name it, and great on paper. But I need for you to present. There's a
Hmm.
skill in presenting. And
Hmm.
so, because we know people who don't have anything on paper, who
That's
don't
right.
have any accolades, and but they can sell shit on a stick when they walk in the room, you know.
Yeah,
At the end of the day, I tell people, I said, people invest in people. I said, you can really have an okay product, but if they love you, they will invest in you and they'll figure out how to make that product better, you know?
yeah,
So this is, you know, I tell stories for a living. And I said, there's no one that can tell your story better than you. So
that's
so
right.
make sure you master that.
That's right. Now, I think as I'm, listening to you, it's making me smile because I remember how hard you guys worked on that that annual activity. It never really stopped. It seemed like it was annual, but it was always ongoing. And I
Mhm.
think, however, I remember one time when Oprah Winfrey announced that she was going to be opening her school for girls in Africa. And there were a whole lot of men who had their cheeks puffed out about it, right?
Mhm.
Didn't matter she had given all that money to Morehouse and all those other
Right,
things,
right.
but that's the problem.
Yeah.
So when you're doing a organization focused on young women, what
Mhm.
type of reactions did you face, and were they difficult to overcome, or were you able to just kind of look at those who raised those issues and say, "Get the hell out of here"? Which
Right,
was it?
right.
Or maybe a combination of both?
Actually, we didn't find that we got much resistance about the gender.
Mhm.
We got more resistance about, oh my God, why is this only for Black and brown girls? I said,
Mm.
that's not in our mission. There's nowhere on our website that says this is only for a certain type of woman from a certain
Okay.
background. I said, you guys just gather that. I said, what it is that when the co-founders are Black women,
Mm.
young people want to gravitate towards somebody that looks like them. So we overwhelmingly got applicants for the academy that were young Black girls,
Mm.
young
Mhm.
brown girls. And
Mhm.
so yeah, I don't think we were going to bend over backwards and say, hey, we need some more white people, some more Asian. No, no, you come and apply. And
Right.
if you make the cut, you make the cut. And
Mhm.
so yeah, but I've gotten some emails just like, why are you segregating? Can white girl? Of course white young
Mhm.
ladies can
Mhm.
apply, you know.
Mhm.
But the gender, every blue moon, they're just like, oh, can we have a minute? It's the same. I said, I'm sure someone's doing that. That's just not our lane, and we're gonna do what what we know. But then we have quite a bit of male supporters, and that we're
Mhm.
always thankful
Yeah,
for.
absolutely. And that's what's interesting is that you've been able to take something and show people the way. I think that's really important. The model you created, and I know that, after the 15 years, it came to its logical conclusion. I'm not too sure yet if it's officially done. We'll see. Knowing the group behind this, I don't know. I'm waiting to
Right.
see. But what I think goes into a lot of what you're saying, you mentioned earlier about your educational background, that you were a teacher, which I would have loved to have seen that. That would have been awesome.
You sure about that, Charles?
Listen, I came up in North St. Louis where we had teachers who would tell you exactly the kind of thing that I'm imagining that you would tell us. And, one of those basic lines was, when you wouldn't do your studies and everything, and then you want to help, they throw a hand on the hip and say, "Child, I got mine. You better get yours." That's the
Oh,
kind of
girl,
teacher. Right,
yeah, yeah.
right.
It really went down and like that. And but you never. Sometimes you just have to say yes. I didn't set out to be a teacher. Like,
Exactly.
I don't know if you know the story of how
Yeah,
I
tell
became
me.
a teacher.
Tell me. I'm
Okay,
interested.
this was wild shit. So I'm the first 6 years or so. I came to New York. I was a television producer for Court Television Network. So
Mhm.
think of the R. Kelly hearings, the Kobe Bryant hearings,
Wow.
the international war crimes of Saddam Hussein, all of that. Phil
Mm.
Spector, I covered, right?
Mhm.
And so every day for about 6 or 7 years, I would cover homicides, molestations, kidnappings. I mean, go through affidavits and then reports looking at beheaded people and oh my God, just yelling across the newsroom. Oh my God was stabbed 55 times. Well, oh no, my guy's decapitated. Just totally
Oh,
desensitized the
wow.
violence, right?
Right.
Just very crazy. Some of these cases now, which is crazy, I look up and see their Netflix series about them. I'm just like,
Right.
whoa, I covered that case when I was like in my mid-20s, right? Um, but it came to a head one day. And listen, I was making nice money. I would travel around the United States covering these crazy serial killer cases. And there was a case that really just, it was just horrendous. And it was about a father who had chopped up his 3 kids to get at his ex-wife and just craziness, right? And I did not feel good about covering the case because at the end of the day, my department just really wanted this woman to cry on camera. And I'm just like, God, she just lost her 3 kids, like,
Right.
and so I remember coming home from Michigan and I got on the subway. And sometimes if you ever lived in New York City, every now and then one train car will be wrapped with the same ad. It'll be like Nike, 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 or Gatorade, Gatorade. And it's just, you can't not miss it. So I'm sitting on this train car and it was rather empty. And I happened to look up and there was an ad and it's all black. The color was just black and white, very plain but bold. And literally the words I looked at, it says, change someone's life, become a New York City school teacher. And I kept looking around and I said, fuck out of here. Like, no way. But it was totally, oh, by the way, I'm a cursing Christian. So I looked up and I was like, there's no way. And I knew it was God talking to me because God speaks to me very boldly.
That's right.
Not a whisper. It was very much billboard, bumper sticker type ordeal. And I was like, and then I saw a website and I could not go to sleep. And I said, let me go to this website. And it was 3 days out from the deadline. So it was a fast track program for people who wanted to switch complete careers and go into teaching. And sort of like Teach for America. And so anyway, I go in, they pay for your master's, and then they stick you anywhere in New York City they want, no matter the neighborhood, right? And so that's how I became a teacher because of my background in media and my major in mass communications. They put me as an English teacher / public speaking and debate teacher. So I taught public speaking and debate for the first couple of years. And these are seniors in high school. So the time I was like 27, 28. Some of my students were like 21. Like you don't age out till you get to 22. So I had 18 to 21-year-olds, and I looked younger at the time. I'm just like, buddy, I am not your girl. I'm not like none of that. Like go sit down, right? And so, but I really chose high school versus the younger kids because oftentimes people just kind of give up on the older kids. They were just like, whatever, And I said, let me catch them before they go out to the world. Let me catch. I don't give 2 shits about a standardized test. I'm not one of those teachers. And whenever I would close my door, we would have these moments. And I made sure when I went to talk to my principal, I said, hey, this book list, I said, listen, these kids have been reading fiction, K through 11. Can we get some nonfiction in here? Can we talk about real people, situations that can think critically about things? And she gave me the, okay, pick from this list. And we did case studies on them and so forth. But we had some very real conversations of just like, at the time, Barack Obama was running for his first term, president. And all they knew was it's like, okay, there's this light-skinned Oreo dude that's running. Literally, that's what they were saying. I said, oh boy, here we go, right? So I said, let's look at this man's background. We read Dreams from My Father, and they perked up when they realized that he had dabbled in some drugs and that he had only met his father for a span of like 30 days, if you add up all the days,
Right.
And they found so much commonality. It's like, man, I never met my dad, or my dad takes care of whole families across Brooklyn, and I see him when I get my haircut, and that motherfucker still doesn't speak to me. I mean, and so instead of going on to the next chapter, I would just close the book. So let's circle up, and some of my young men were like 20, and we had these real moments, and it was a safe space, and I mean, just endless tears of just how they just wanted their dad. And so I said, you know what, I want them to know that there's always somebody out there, maybe not a lot, that will listen to you, and it's okay to release, and so I miss those kids. I don't miss teaching, but the bureaucracy of teaching, but I miss those students. I follow quite a bit of them on social media, and like some of them, they're getting their masters now. They have full families and kids, and but teaching, they knew. Listen, they would try some other teachers, but they knew when they came in my class, like, don't try me.
That's
like,
right.
Try anybody else. Don't try me because I'm really here for you. And I said, I don't have to raise my voice, but like, I want to respect you, you know, but you coming in here saying all types of stuff. I said, yeah. And I said, and I was one of those teachers where I said, listen, I'm not going to condemn you for cursing. I said, but see if you can use another word instead. If not, that's just how you feel. Okay. You know, I said, but yeah, I just didn't get caught up in a lot of bureaucracy of teaching. That's probably why I didn't stay too long. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we share that commonality. I hate bureaucracy. What did you learn from teaching that you've carried forward with you and deployed across the many, many different things that you do and just the way that you move through the world?
Excellent question. I always tell people teaching high schoolers taught me to be so much more flexible. I thought I was just a very flexible person. Oh, you can put me in any situation. And nah, these kids, they taught me, you know, it was very overcrowded school. So you're dealing with like sometimes 40 kids in a classroom. And
Mm-hmm.
to understand this is 40 different homes coming into one setting, 40 different ideologies coming into one setting, and how to, despite all the differences, and although my school was 99% Black, it's still very different, you know, how can we get to a certain destination and a common goal despite the differences? So it really taught me to be less judgmental, because sometimes when I met their parents, I'm like, you know what? I'm happy that you even turned out to be this good, because your people are off the chain. But then looking deeper into it, why is it perhaps that they lack just the basic parenting skills?
Right.
Are they overwhelmed with being in a certain social economic? Like, I started to see how deep situations can be, from housing to employment to, it's not that some parents don't give a damn, they are just trying to survive, you know, and unfortunately their kid is caught up in the middle of this. And I learned not to compare households. It's like, oh, well, if this person pulled himself up by the bootstrap and was able to do this, and nah, it's everybody's built differently.
Right.
And it taught me to not paint a picture with using broad strokes and a broad paintbrush, you know, and just everything is very different. And it really helped me on the game of Survivor later on. I'm sure we'll talk about.
Oh, we are definitely going to talk about that. And that whole bootstrap thinking, you know, philosophy, I absolutely abhor it. I don't know how the hell you're going to pull yourself up with a bootstrap when you don't have any damn boots. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that that's what's telling, you know, and as we move through this and talk about some of your other work, there's a sensitivity that it reflects and a kind of almost, I would call it almost an innate understanding of issues. I mean, some of the, you know, social series work that you've done, which we'll talk about, I think that, you know, I see the lessons from your teaching experience reflected in those many times. So you left teaching, and then you moved on. And let me just say this for the people listening. You know, Sabrina is all the things I've mentioned, but she's also an entrepreneur. She makes fantastic jewelry. Okay. I don't think she does it anymore because she doesn't have time, but it was very popular. And it's with an aesthetic that is, you know, unique and special, because you look at it and you want to, hell, I mean, I couldn't wear it because it was for women, but it was just great. And just everything that you do has a kind of, again, inherent understanding to it. So you took all of that from teaching, you moved on to your next avenue, and talk to me about what that was.
Okay, so I went into teaching from television producing to teaching, and I was like, okay, I didn't know when and how and I was going to pivot. I knew I was going to be in teaching for like 30 some odd years. It just wasn't me, but I just simply kind of obeyed what I saw in front of me. It's like change someone's life, becoming
no coincidences.
Right. So Charles, check this, like 4.5 years into teaching, no, 4 years into teaching, I go downstairs to the main office of the school and check my physical mailbox. And, you know, there were these like memos. And it's the memo, and I'm paraphrasing. Bloomberg was the mayor at the time. It says, due to budget cuts, city budget cuts, we're gonna, for the most part, have to get rid of 2,000 teachers and 4,000 cops. I'm really just paraphrasing. That was the gist of it. And I'm just like, and it says, okay, if you get this letter, then perhaps you might be in the pool of people, X, Y, Z. And I'm just like,
And you're like, thanks.
yeah, like, did I quit my job in television to come over to teaching with a really, really
That's
severe pay
right.
cut
Right.
to get let go of? Like,
Mhm.
this is crazy. But I remember not stressing
Right.
for some reason. And I was like, oh, okay, Lord, what you want me to do with this? And then the next day, less than 24 hours later, I get this email. And it was a random email. And the email was titled TV Inquiry. So I'm thinking of some of my buddies back in television who might need my input on a project or whatever. So I opened it up and it says, "Hi, Sabrina. This is a shot in the dark, but it's worth asking. My name is Penny. I'm the lead casting producer for the hit show Survivor on CBS." So I'm like, and I really thought it was my homeboy Steve playing a joke. And I'm just like, okay. But then I kept reading and it was very long and detailed. And I was like, Steve's not going to write this long ass email, right? And so, long story short, they were casting for the next season of Survivor. And they needed 2 more women, preferably Black or Hispanic. And they, for the most part, had already picked those 2 women. They were in the last stages of creating this electronic profile. And they were adding pictures from the internet from these women to put a final stamp of approval on it and send to Mark Burnett, TV god, right? Why did the Black lady that they had already chosen, she was like 65 at the time, a professional bass fisherwoman who like lived in Houston, Texas, like could not be more polar opposite than me. Why did we have the same name? Sabrina Thompson. And every time they
Wow.
Googled Sabrina Thompson, they got her picture, but they also got my picture. And so I was with Ween then. So they were on the Ween website.
Right.
And they read my website. They said, whoa, who is this one? We like this Sabrina way better than this Sabrina. And that was the email that they sent me.
Wow.
So I'm responding to this email, Charles. I'm still thinking it's my homeboy Steve, right? I'm responding, Steve, get the fuck out of here. I know this is you. And then I was just like, before I hit send, I said, P.S. If there's any validity to this email, call me this time tomorrow on this number. And they did. And we were pretty much, for the most part, ending the school year, going into summer break. I had already got the memo that I might be laid off. And I said, I would be crazy to say no to this. Like, literally, we'll be whisked off on an island the entire summer. And if I come back without a job, cool. Why not take this opportunity? And 2 weeks later, I was thrusted on the island of Samoa in the South Pacific with just the clothes on my back and playing the wildest game for $1 million. And I always tell people, I really think teaching is what got me so far in the game. So I ended up getting second place. Second place doesn't win $1 million. We get 1 less zero. So I got 100 grand over a span of 39 days, which I don't think was bad at all.
Not at all.
And some bonus money. But what it did was gave me the financial freedom to just start stuff that I've been wanting to start and take even more risks. So yeah, teaching prepped me for this crazy island, dealing with crazy personalities in a setting, and how to just listen to everyone without getting too overwhelmed. But yeah, it was crazy. It was the craziest watch. So that's how I exited from teaching.
Wow.
I put in my resignation letter and just like, students, take care of me. I mean, I'll take care of yourselves. Let's stay in contact, but I'm out.
Now, the thing that I am intrigued by hearing this story, I knew a little bit, but not nearly as much as you just shared. You know, I had said earlier, if I have a simple philosophy, it is really that there are no coincidences. Everything, you know, if you're a person of faith and whatever that faith form may take and belief system you subscribe to, I believe there are no coincidences. And to see the trajectory that you've been on and how every individual step led to another one, you had nothing to do with it, right? That's the beauty of it. So that's got to instill in you, then and now, a real sense of fearlessness because you don't worry, right?
at all, at all. But the fearlessness was there prior. And I always tell people this, and listen, I hate to quote Kanye West, but it is what it is. He talks about, I don't know it verbatim, but he talks about a certain fearlessness that he had once he got into a really bad car accident and had his jaw wired.
Oh, yeah.
And so I faced death 4 times.
Hmm.
I've almost drowned twice, and been in a really bad car accident, and I got electrocuted.
What?
All crazy stories. Yeah. Like, the electrocution one was the first face of death when I was little.
Okay.
I don't even remember. My mom said I stuck a fork in the socket and
Inquisitive mind, yeah.
all fingertips were like black and whatever. And then now, granted, I don't remember that, but all the other stuff leading up, like I've had CPR done on me twice, just nearly drowning. And so I think when you face death so many times, it's just like that right there was just complete fearlessness. Like, why not try this? Like, and so I think I went into Survivor with that aspect, but also with the tools that teaching gave me. Also the tools that working in live TV. Like there's very few room, like, there's a slight delay, but it's you got to get it right for the most part. And if you don't, that's your ass on the line, And just dealing with difficult attorneys of these cases. And, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not from the legal world, but I got really, really hip to legal jargon super quick in order to, I always tell people I got the bootleg law degree working at Court TV for so long.
I hear that.
But couple all of that together, and it really gave me the tools I needed to be stranded out on the island. And it's almost like me leaving the little town of Wilson, North Carolina, being on the island of Manhattan and not knowing a soul and not knowing how this goes. And you figure it out. You figure out who your allies are in the game, and you trust them as much as what you need to in order to get to where you need to. But along the way, aside from playing this game, so many people were in it just very, oh my God, this is a game. And I was just like, I literally, because it was so quick, I had 2 weeks to prep to go out to this island. It's like, and one thing I must say, Charles, is because I've nearly drowned a couple of times, I have a deep-seated fear of water.
Understandable.
Of swimming.
Yeah.
And so when I went into this meeting in LA to talk to the producers, I knew one of the questions was like, oh, can you swim? I knew that was going to be the kiss of death if I said no. And I said, of course I can swim. I'm no Michael Phelps, but I can get from A to B. And in my head, I said, oh shit, I got to get this together. And so I remember now at this time, I'm still like a broke school teacher or whatever. I went to, this guy, I had a membership at the Y, and it was a pool, it was in Bedside, and I knew the swim instructor because I would just wave to him. So I went up to him and I said, hey, I don't have money for these lessons. I said, but I just made up. So I said, I have a really big bet with my friends, and it involves a lot of money. I need to learn how to swim in like if within the next 2 weeks. He was like, I said, trust me, if I win this bet, you'll get some of the money, right? He was like, okay, really nice, older, sweet guy. And he met me every day at 5 a.m. and at 8:30 p.m. Every day. And Charles, I learned how to swim in 10 days.
Wow.
Like going into 12 feet of water, diving, coming back up, only to get to the island and not have one swimming challenge.
Of course not.
That's how it works out.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Oh my gosh. All of this is really compelling to me because, we talked about, the fearlessness, but my gosh, your resourcefulness is off the chain.
I just said, listen, dude, and he was a nice guy. And I said, I have to learn how to swim. And part of him is just like, he wants people, especially Black people, to learn how to swim regardless. And
I see. Okay.
You could see it in my eyes, like this was a sense of urgency. So, yeah. It was an experience for sure. So,
in doing Survivor, and you go through all of this, I'll just tell you, I'm king of the germaphobes. I could never be dirty and eat whatever that is. I would just no. So I would never take that opportunity. I would miss the experience, unfortunately. But thankfully, I've lived vicariously through you, so I don't have to. So that's a good thing. But you take all of that and you go through it, and once again, you're learning. I mean, I watched your season and I watched you, and it was fascinating because your grit, you're just like, I'm going to get this done and I'm going to make things happen. Doesn't that seem to, at least if I'm, on the outside looking in, that would be a framework of the way you've come through life so far. You will get it done and you will find a way where none seems to exist. All of these things you're talking about, and I didn't even know about the many times dying thing. I was like, wow, that's, I don't even know what to say. But you don't let experiences convince you to stand back. You allow them to encourage you forward. Talk to me about why that's the case and how you now make decisions when you are confronted with new things as to how you're going to proceed.
I think a lot of it comes, Charles, I come from a very small town. Like,
Yeah.
although I met Felicia when I was in the 3rd grade because I moved to the bigger city of
Yeah.
Wilson.
Got the bigger city.
I grew up in a place called Saratoga, North Carolina. 800 people, one stoplight. Very tiny, right? And in the neighborhood that I lived in, it was like a row of houses. It wasn't even streets, just a row of houses. And I remember being like the only girl, and it was I would play with my brother and all his friends or whatever, but they were all boys and whatever, And so there was nothing to do. So we had to create things. We had to create games, and a lot of it was imaginary stuff. And if we wanted to be entertained, we had to create it. And so I always tell people, I think my creativity came from the lack of not having things around me, living in rural parts of America. And from there, it's just like taking risks. Okay, let's jump the ditch and go to the tree, And so none of that really fazed me. But when my dad and my mom got me into running track and field. And track is a very individual sport. You stay in your lane. When the gun goes off, boom, you get to the end as fast as possible, And because I literally started running when I was 6, we got really serious around the age of 9 and was really successful really quickly. Like won my first national championship at the age of 9. And then from there, just kept going. Track really instilled in me, like, you got to rely on yourself. Like if you win, you get all the glory, but if you lose, it's all on you too. So it taught me how to deal with pressure at a very young age. But one thing, my dad sat me down, and track, a lot of it, well, like any sport, is mental, right? Especially with track, you have to visualize yourself winning. You literally, and it's almost like a out of body experience. Like you're standing at the line about to start the race, or maybe 10 minutes before. You just close your eyes and you see yourself running and winning and turning around and looking at the people coming behind. And so I mastered that, learning the visualization of things. And so later on, when people would come to me with different things, like, oh, you want to try this and this and the other, it was just like, I think I took risks at such a young age. It's just, it just became ingrained in me. It's just like, why not do that? And if things become boring to me super quickly, okay, it's time to change up something. So if someone presents an opportunity that's going to expose me to new things, then why not? I think sometimes we get caught up in we consume a lot of the fear that we see on TV and media and so forth. And people will not even try, even down to like certain foods. It's like, try it. After that, you make an informed decision. Hey, I never want to try sushi again. But you have made an informed decision about it because you experienced it, right? And so I just think it spills over into everything else that I've done. And so when people come up with new projects, fast forward to the future, listen, I'm human. So there are times where I get nervous, and I do have some certain fear, but it doesn't stifle me and doesn't stop me from doing it, And, like for instance, when I got the opportunity to be the cinematographer for Hillary Clinton during the last 7 months of her presidency,
that was a slip there. You said presidency. She didn't get that.
Yeah. See, look,
you were hopeful.
We live in the wild, wild west.
You said what could have been, right?
Yeah, during her campaign.
Yeah, exactly.
It was very intimidating because it was a very male-dominated space from the cinematography. I think they have one other woman, and I'm just like, okay. And I knew in that sphere, I had to tell the story that obviously made her look good.
Sure.
But I'm used to telling it from a very run and gun type This had to be super polished. This had to go through X amount of hands. And so, working in corporate America, doing some of my corporate clients is much different than a raw creative piece. And so could I really tell the stories of the mothers of the movement and gun violence my way?
Yeah.
I couldn't. I had to tailor it so it fit into her narrative of running. And so I didn't let that stop me, but it was a challenge. And because I've been challenged early on in my life, I welcome challenges.
Yeah.
I welcome competition. And a lot of people shy away from it. It's like, oh, you're only in competition with yourself. That's cool. That's cool. It's whatever you tell yourself. That's cool. But I'm a big, big proponent of competition, not to outshine someone and say, oh, I did this and you didn't. No, it's just like iron sharpens iron. And if Charles is going to get in this and just like step your game up, and it's like, okay, I'm going to get in the ring too. What can we do? And so I think it's the perspective in which you look at it. When you win, I win. When I win, you win. We're going to sharpen each other. And when you get the tribe, when you get people on your team that has that mentality, I just really think you're unstoppable.
Yeah. So you're not going to be giving out any participation trophies, in other words.
Oh, no. Why, Charles?
Oh, my.
A whole nother absolutely not.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Funny. I talked to
yeah, I'm not too good with the overly sensitive. I want to circle back to North Carolina a bit. You mentioned your mom and dad, and of course, I'm going to add in the third person, your grandma. By the way, I mean, they're your parents, your grandma. I love them all. They've never met me, never met them, but just the way that they are in the storytelling that you do share, obviously they are truly foundational. I mean, your parents have been married for a very long time. They look awesome, by the way, as does your grandma, who is stylish and as spicy as they come.
Yeah, she's 96.
As you look at their lives and you're applying now how you are moving forward in your own, there's a lot that you take from them. I mean, just, when you share conversations you have and that type of thing. I'm going to kind of take that part and say that you got married. What year was that?
2019.
2019. Oh, just in time for, COVID, the year later.
Woo,
Perfect.
Jesus, being a newlywed during the pandemic.
Yeah.
That should be a book on that. Jesus
Definitely
Christ.
the case. And in the midst of time since, you've become what I like to use, and I think you use the term too, bonus mom. All of this experience, the lessons and the wisdom and the insights from your grandma and your parents, you are at this very specific space in your life right now where everything has come full circle. How do you balance those lessons, all of them, because there are many, as a person now who is, in addition to what you did, which was helping young women and helping young people when you were a teacher, but now you've got this beyond the walls of the school where you are influencing people for the rest of their lives, and this is going to be a huge deal. How do you do that? And when it happened, speaking about taking on challenges, what was your initial reaction? Not that I have to really ask, but tell me how you got there and how you're doing so far with it, as your estimation exists.
Well, lots of red wine is involved. But no, I just, I'll say this. My parents, everybody always talks about, oh my God, my kids are good, or, be glad you got good kids. I'm like, no, be glad you have decent parents, you know, and you're lucky if you have one good one, I said, so if you have two that are present and there for you unconditionally, I think that's half the battle in life. You have a good base, good foundation. And so now, granted, we have a lot of fundamental differences.
Of course. They're parents.
Older boomers.
That's right.
Okay?
That's right.
And I'm Gen X. And I'm more of a radical Gen X. So I will say I took the base of what they taught me, never to give up, never back away down from a challenge, but mixed in with some of the, and even my grandmother was just like, my grandmother's very one like, oh, just try it. You should just try it. Even like, oh, grandma, what's advice? I was asking her as a single woman then. What's your advice for marriage? She said, just try it. And I said, what? Just very, yeah, just try it, And so I think they gave me the spirit of resiliency. And not everything's gonna work out, and it's all about how you view it and stay steadfast in your faith. I
Mm.
think faith has gotten me through a lot of these very big monumental changes. I am now 43,
Get
and
out of here.
I'm
That's not
43.
even possible.
Yeah, I'm 40. Charles, you trying to get some bonus points over here?
No, you know me, I'm gonna call it like I see it. If you look 43, I tell you.
So true. And I think in your head you have how you think things would
Sure.
be look. And so I'm just, oh, by this time I'll be married, have kids, and that is the truth, but it looks very different.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was gifted with two beautiful bonus kids, ages 14 and 16,
Mm.
like a year and a half into our marriage,
Mm-hmm.
roughly. Just unfortunately through a tragedy, their
Sure.
mom passed. And
Mm-hmm.
so they now live with us full time. And listen, they're teenagers, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. And then unfortunately, just the grief part of it. And so I
Absolutely.
was just like, and so the first people I called was my mom and dad, like, how do I do this? How do I do this? And I remember them saying, calm down, first of all, take a deep breath. And they were just like, you want to know how you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Oh,
And they
yeah.
were just like, yeah. And they just said, they said, listen, even people with biological kids, it was like, they just bobbing and weaving every day. They don't know. They don't know.
That's right.
Listen, we mess up every single day with kids. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's where and I'm not an anxiety riddled person at all,
Sure.
but this is the biggest mountain I've had to face as an adult, I think, because
Mm-hmm.
usually with track and field, it is you get all the glory, you lose or whatever, you're in control of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
In New York, owning small business, you're in control of usually who you get as clientele. You're a teacher, you're running the ship, and you're in control of that. God gave me some I had no
No
control over.
control.
And I said,
Mm-hmm.
okay, here we go. Here
Mm-hmm.
we go. And
Mm-hmm.
so they're the sweetest, nicest kids. But just kind of acclimating to new home, new environment, new school. And I'm just so proud of them that they finish out the school year really good. And we're learning. We're just learning as we go. And I think God really prepped me for this position when I went off to teach in high school,
Right.
and then I didn't teach little kids, and then I taught
Exactly.
high schoolers, and
Mm-hmm.
now you look back on your life, and I'm kind of getting emotional here, where I'm sitting in the subway, and I'm just like, well, no, absolutely not. I'm not doing teaching, and then I just kind of caved in and said, yeah, I had no idea why. Like, it could have been a subway ad for becoming something else, but it was to teach, and
Mm-hmm.
those skills, those kids that are now, knocking
Mm-hmm.
on their 30s, prep me to be a bonus mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I learned the art of listening.
Mm-hmm.
Kids that age, you just want to be listened to.
Right.
They can be saying the craziest shit on camera. You just want to be listened to. I'm just like, okay, all
Right.
right, that sounds completely wild, but how are you gonna back it up? What's your evidence? What's your proof? And so I like to listen to them talk. Dinner time is my favorite time.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I had to get used to being, I guess, more domestic. Like, I like cooking when it can be pretty, when it's a dinner party, when I can lay it out. But every day, like, what? What is that about? Like, no. And there's only so much you can eat out, order in, and just like,
Right.
okay, let me get creative. But God, and then it's just like, well, they like my cooking, and I'm just like, listen, Lord, that to me, and it's crazy. That to me has been the biggest headache during this pandemic. What the fuck am I gonna cook the next day? Like, literally, that is crazy. I told somebody the other day, I said, I went from climbing inside of pyramids like 3-4 years ago, eating dinner on the Nile, being in Santorini, to literally going down the Target aisle 2 times a week looking for hot Cheetos. Red wine on deck. But they give me so much joy. They
Yeah.
give me
Yeah.
so much joy.
Oh, well, there's been and of course, people listening won't be able to see this, but as you're talking about this, there's such a subtle change in your face because it's just pure joy that's reflected there. And I know that's a little crazy, but that's the good thing. That's the good thing. I believe that, when you have faith, that you surrender yourself to it and you give yourself over to the innate possibilities that exist because you know that through faith you will find your way. Listening to your story and your life so far, you're clearly on that path. Now, you're also a person who runs her own business, still remains creative, and is always open to new possibilities. So, talk to me now. I'm going to call you Mama Sabrina, uh, about that business aspect because you've got this full, rich, evolving life, but you still have business. How do you strike that balance?
It's a good question. Great segue. In a weird, bittersweet way, the pandemic helped to ground me because I couldn't go anywhere. Right? I literally, I would like since moving to Houston, my first year here before the pandemic hit, I would go to New York easily 3 times a month, easily. I didn't even get a chance to miss New York because I got a little taste. I would go in for 3 days, come back home, and it was perfect. It was a perfect setting. Come back home to the suburbs, breathe, go back, get my city life, get my clients, come back. But everything shut down during the pandemic, including the film and TV industry. And they were just trying to figure out how are we going to go back and film? How are we going to do commercials? What is the protocol? And so literally, Charles, when I say my income took a 90% hit, I'm just like, okay, let me go to savings. I don't want to dwell on the savings things down. But obviously my husband was really the rock of our family. Then his career was never affected. But I was at home more now. And what it did was the pandemic gave me time to revisit things I had shelved for like 5 and 6 years, So it gave me time. I sat my ass down and started being creative in a way that wasn't like normal for me. I can edit something with my eyes closed. I can tell this story X, Y, and Z. But now it pushed me into something I had said I've been wanting to do for a long time. Scripted television, scripted dramas. Okay. And I had these crazy ideas. But I'm just like, okay, I haven't sat down and had the time to flush these things out. And so we had ample time now. There was like kind of no excuse, And so we got our team together on Zoom and so forth. And developed some non-scripted shows, but also still working on scripted shows. And so super happy. And I don't know if I told you, so 2 of our shows got picked up by a huge production company who just went under this merger. So we're like, okay, what's happening?
Yeah.
But I said, you know what? If it's meant to be, no matter, it's gonna survive through this merger.
Fantastic.
And but anyway.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So I said, this is bittersweet, but it stretched me in a different way. And what I do is I learned something from Shonda Rhimes. She said in her book, it's just like, or was it may have been an article. I think it was an article. God knows that lady's busy. She has 2 daughters, but she said, no, I had to put a time on, okay, from 10 to 4, this company's gonna get all of me. But then after 4, it's family time. So I try to do that and just be like, okay, I try not to take a call after a certain time unless it's an emergency, but I'll deal with it the next business day. I try to actually have weekends. For the last decade, I'm like, what's a weekend? Like, but I didn't complain about it. I said, because my job, my career is fun. Like I don't mind that the days bleed together. I wake up every day loving what I do. And so that's as much balance as what I'm going to get. Just trying to get a little bit of structure in our day and to give time to, my household and so forth. But also relinquishing like, hey, y'all want to earn some extra money? Go in here and clean that. Like, I'm not cleaning that, that you're learning life skills, you're getting your money up. And so of the money is what I love about like stuff now that we didn't have back in the day, like of the allowance that we give them, my husband and I give them, they only can use a certain percentage of the rest goes into an account. Oh, nice. And they actually get to invest it like on their own little with Chase Bank. It's a great app. So anyway, so I'm just learning to parent on a daily
Well,
basis.
I was going to say, you do realize that you are speaking as a parent right now. Listen to you. You're a parent. Imagine that. And
Craziness,
you're doing it
craziness.
well. You're doing it well. And in terms of the work, let's talk a little bit about your baby, Coup Productions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you created that and you've done all these different things across these different platforms. You know, you talked about the series, which again, I'm thrilled. I'll be waiting to hear when it's going to air because I'll be sitting right there watching. I
Okay.
celebrate anyone that I know who is doing something. I don't care what the circumstance is. I'm going to find it and I'm going to be the first one who offers applause. So
Love it.
that's
Love it.
good. But as you look for Coup Productions now, given this balance that you've talked about, how it is, what do you see going forward with your production company? Do you want to see it grow? Do you want to somehow bring to bear all of the different influences from Ween to teaching to Survivor to bear on what you produce now? What is your goal for the company going forward?
Good question. Two main goals. One, switching gears, going into the more of the scripted realm. I'm not really into film as much as I am into episodic TV series, you know, because you get to live and breathe with these characters and last throughout X amount of seasons. And, you know, movies, 90 minutes, 2 hours. And then that's kind of it. So the goal is to create TV series to live on whatever platform or network. That's one. And two is, I call it my big, hairy, audacious dream is kind of taking a page out of Tyler Perry. You know, there are a lot of people who might condemn his content. Like I said, listen, I don't care whether you like this man's content or not. You have got to be a fool to not give this man a standing ovation what he has created down there in
Absolutely.
Atlanta. It is on his timeline. I mean, on his watch and with his money.
That's
you know,
that's right.
And so that's what I love about it. So in a nutshell, it's wonderful to actually live down here in Houston. A lot of people are flocking down here, but cost of living is super cheap, right? And so this is a big but long-term goal. I would love to have like a small filming lot down here in Houston. You know, it's the middle of the country. You can get to LA and New York from there. Aside from hurricanes, or you know, hurricane season, it really is a great place where it's wide open. There's so much talent down here, but it hasn't really been curated for the entertainment industry, right? But sitting on this film lot that would be Black owned, majority ran by women of color, would be an academy. It would be like a film school, you know? And so, you know, although Ween may not be Ween anymore, but how can a person who maybe didn't go to college, or maybe this person is 58 and always had dreams of being a TV producer, they can take night classes, and they will get the hands-on experience in the classroom and literally go out the back door to a lot and make it happen, whether it's on a small scale web series all the way to a big series. And so that is a big goal of mine. And it's so funny because when my husband and I, we bought our house, we just fell in love with our realtor. And I said, hey, obviously let's keep in contact. I said, I'm gonna need some land soon, you know, sooner than later, hopefully. She's like, for what? And I said, I just have a dream of building a TV lot. And because they don't have anything like that here. LA, but it's so costly. And I want the people to know, just as I was a small town girl, like you don't feel the pressure and the need to have to go to a New York, have to go to an LA. You know, now you go down to Atlanta, you might come to Houston one day, and so that's the goal.
You know, that really is fascinating. I can't wait. I've got here, ask, believe, receive.
Oh, okay.
So that's what you're going to manifest, and I'm going to be pulling for you to manifest it. But as we close out here, Sabrina, the thing that I want to leave the listeners with is this. As we are looking at this life, this single individual life, you know, I remember that line that Oprah Winfrey said, Quincy Jones said to her. I don't know if you remember this quote, but she said early on when he had met her that he kind of got to know her a little bit, and he was telling her one day about the things he wanted to do with her in terms of The Color Purple and things like this. And he told her, your future is so bright, it burns my eyes. I feel that way about you. not
Oh,
only because of what I've known you to be, but because of who you are and how evident it is in terms of who you're becoming. So, as you want to possibly encourage anyone, and I'm going to say particularly, young women, how to live a life that doesn't only give them a stint on Survivor, but helps them learn how to survive life itself. What is your advice to them?
my advice to them is to give.
Hmm.
A good leader is a good servant. I always tell people, the things that I may have failed in life is because I didn't have other people to mind on the journey. Um, there's never been a situation that I have been in where when I gave, also didn't flourish as a person, emotionally, financially, mentally, so forth. And when you stay in the mindset of giving, now granted, you can't exhaust yourself. Take a break, come back. You
Hmm.
gotta, you'll learn that about yourself. But giving is the key. You don't go through trials and tribulations to sit on that story. At
Hmm.
some point in time, you got to share that testimony, because oftentimes we go through crazy shit, not for us,
Hmm.
it's for somebody else.
Right.
It's for somebody else to hear. And so it's that changing the perspective. And the more we get out of the woe is me, why this me, why not you,
Hmm.
even
Hmm.
the crazy situations, and know that it is something that is bigger than you would ever dream of why it's happening.
Mm.
And it might be a hard pill to swallow,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it is all connected.
Yeah. And on that note, Sabrina, we're going to wrap here. But I do want to thank you so much because you know what? This is going to help a whole lot of somebody's. Because what happens with these podcasts and the individual things I do, there's not a day or week that goes by that I don't hear from somebody somewhere who, much like you, will say, I needed that message today. And you're going to be the vessel that's going to deliver this message to a lot of people. And I'm thankful for that because you are consistently a gracious, thoughtful human being. And in a world where we've got so many rich, emerging assholes, it's nice to have people like you in the mix. Now, for people who want to help you manifest that dream of that lot and that, studio, tell them about how they can get more information about Coup Productions.
Well, you can look at my work and
Hmm.
see just kind of the trajectory of my work on my website. It's Cool Productions. So it's KUU Productions with an S.com. Same thing on Instagram at Cool Productions. And you can just email me directly, Sabrina, Sabrina, at coolproductions.com. And we can take it from there. But I'm super excited, and how I'm going to start doing this will be very interesting to you
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
So
Well, I tell you, when I get through losing weight and want to do a video that talks about my transformation, I'm coming down to Texas. How's that? You can shoot.
sounds good. You
Yeah.
look fine, Charles.
Well, you know what? We want a little bit better than fine. I live in LA.
Oh, on that note, I've been staring at your arm tattoos. Before the summer is out, I think I'm getting my left arm tatted.
Good, good. I have a lot of them. I'll just leave it that way. So I want to really thank you. You are awesome people, and we are certainly of the same tribe. I will, of course, encourage you to continue doing what you're doing because as you get a chance to see people do good work, this is the model of what it should look like. So thank you very much again.
And salute to you in this podcast. Thank you for having me.
All right, Sabrina. Have a good rest of your weekend.
You too.
Bye now.